Item 11, just an update. There's a PowerPoint presentation. I will move...
I'll second that, Mr.
Yeah, and second by Councillor Simpson, just to put on the table for discussion. And for yours, Craig, just introduce the team and we'll get into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a great pleasure to introduce the wonderful team we've got delivering Safeswim for Council. On my immediate left we have Andrew Sholem, who is the project manager, and on his left is Martin Neal, who is the technical lead for the program. And they're just going to give you an update. As you know, we went live on the 3rd of November, so we're now a couple of weeks into the program, so we thought it was, because of the significance of the program, and it's really putting a very important peg in the ground for this council moving forward, so we thought it was timely to come today and give you an update. Okay. So I'll just hand over to Andrew, who's going to lead us through the presentation.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. Tēnā koutou katoa. It is a pleasure to be here, almost a couple of weeks into the Safeswim program, which, as you'll remember, is a very innovative step for the council. We're shifting from traditional monitoring approaches, which our analysis was finding about 4% of the exceedances in water quality at standards at some of our beaches, to an approach which includes which is based on forecasting, underpinned by models that are informed by long-term data sets, as well as targeted site-specific investigations and validation sampling, as well as sensors on the network. So you can see it's a big shift that we've gone through. There we go. Okay, just a quick reminder. It's a rather sophisticated program, and I thought I'd just, there's a bit of a lag here, it would seem, in the, just the first one, please. Yeah, this does not seem to be working. That one, thanks. So it's a rather sophisticated program. There's a whole bunch of different data streams coming in from REMU, from meteorological services, LINS, Met Service, etc. We've got a range of modelling programs. We've also got, you'll remember, the involvement of Water Care, Surf Life Saving New Zealand, and the Auckland Regional Public Health Service all feeding into the program. So if we can go to the next slide, please. What we want to do today is just give you an update on how it is performing, giving you some statistics on what we're seeing, and also the nature of the responses. Okay. There's some kind of lag here, I'm sorry. Okay, so the models are up and running. What we're seeing here is just data showing what is actually happening right now. We're seeing they're performing exactly as expected. Like we said, the validation that we're getting is showing that the models are effectively picking up the rainfall, wind, tide, etc., and giving results of water quality at the beaches as per planned. So it's running as planned. Is this going to work?
No, it may be better just with...
Yeah, if you could just flick to the next
one.
Yep,
you just let it know. Thanks.
The other thing I want to let you know is that we do now have all of the, we can confirm we've got all the water care sensor data coming in from their network, and this is just showing a couple of spikes that are coming from what happens when you see an overflow from the water care network. And if we can go to the next slide, please. This is showing how the forecasts and the sensors are working together. So the system is stitched together and operating as planned. So we're really happy. We can assure you we're analysing it every day, every hour. We're watching it as it's going, and is performing as anticipated. So which is great news. So we've got just here. We thought you might want to see a couple of actual examples of what the Safeswim has picked up at some of our beaches. So we'll start with. We'll come back to that one. Thanks, Tam. Well, if we just go back to the presentation, please. Yep. we'll stay with Milford South there. Cool. So what we're seeing here is the output, what's sitting behind the models and the map that Safeswim shows to everybody. That dotted line there is the threshold between what is acceptable swimming and what is not acceptable swimming. So we're seeing, since the launch, we're seeing 4 rainfall events, 3 of which prompted exceedances, and that was advised to the public through the website in a highly transparent way. If we could flick to the next one, please, Tam. You can see here is Te Atatu Beach, and that dashed line there is the threshold between what is acceptable to swim in and what is not. And again, we're seeing this is popping up. Now, what's important to let you know is that under the old Safeswim program, many of these were being missed, and so this information is now being put up transparently. It's generating quite a lot of dialogue, and if we can go to the next one, please. Well, I might flick past this because it's the same story. Next one, and the next one, please. So what we'll do here is we'll jump onto the website in a second, but I want to just let you know, in the 9 days since its launch, and we've had some very kind of low-key promotional activity, here are some statistics. We've had 7,863 page views, so that's 4,373 unique users who've jumped on, almost 6,000 times. There's a slight spike during rain events, which is exactly the kind of culture that we're wanting to see. People going on and checking at risk times. And if we compare that with the last Safeswim season, we had 13,000 page views across the entire season from November to March. So we're a bit over half of the entire hits for the last entire season in less than 2 weeks. And we haven't actually yet begun the more comprehensive promotional activities that we have planned. Well done. So what we're interpreting this is, along with the amount of engagement that we're getting from the public, that the public is really interested in this and paying attention. So I wonder, Tam, if you could go to, we'll go to the safeswim.org website if possible. If you can just refresh it, please.
Well, yeah.
You might have loaded this earlier in the morning and there's been a forecast update. So this is the live site. So this is showing what's going on around the city at the moment and the region. So I want to just guide you through it a little bit.
Okay.
Just looking up here to my left, you can see there are some icons that have got a red swimmer on them. For the other people, this one up here. What they are is we're transparent, being quite transparent here about the beaches that have had water quality of such a poor state for a long enough time for them to qualify for long-term warnings. So there's a specific threshold that we respond to there. So we're putting them up on the site now so people can see them.
All my local beaches.
And we're also seeing, perhaps, Tam, if you could go into this beach here, which will Okahu Bay. You could just pop into Okahu Bay.
Yeah.
Great. So what pops up there on the side, if you could scroll down, please. So bear with me, councillors. So showing, we're obviously not expecting any rain this afternoon, so you've got a nowcast. This is what's happening now, the water quality there, and you can see that you can stroll through and see what's coming up through the day. Now, had more rain been forecast for this afternoon, it would have been a different picture. It would have been showing that water quality would have been getting poorer usually. So that's just a demonstration. The site is working. The models are operating, the validation is coming through and showing that we're getting good accuracy. The platform is nice and stable and performing as we'd anticipated. Another thing that what I'd like to do is show you, if we can pop out, Tam, to Bethel's Beach here. That one up here.
Top left.
And if you click onto beach details, that tab there, please. Cool. And if you slide down and keep going, you'll notice that this puts up all the information about patrol times. If there's actually an active patrol, like a beach surf lifesaving patrol, an icon will come up on the beach and let you know. Similarly, icons will pop up, and we actually, when we were doing the launch, the surf lifesavers had spotted a shark out in the harbour earlier, so they put a launch up just as Dean was standing there with the TV crew filming. And a little alert popped up, which is a little exclamation mark over the beach, and it said, shark spotted. So the system is working.
It wasn't Dean.
Oh, thank you. No,
I just...
Working nicely. One of the things that we're getting in some of the questions coming through from the media is showing just a little, the media and the public are just start taking a little bit of time to get to grips with the fact that we're shifting from a monitoring to a forecasting program. And so some people have been saying, how can you tell what the water quality is going to be? And there's, just a sense of, needing to take a bit of time to understand the system that underpins this. And I wondered, I don't know if there's anything that, Martin, you wanted to add on that point.
We've done extensive validation testing of the models over the past 6 to 9 months, and we're continuing to do so at the moment. It was too late for this presentation, but I got some results this morning from validation we did last week, which was trying to test whether model forecasts were correct. And on first look, then they do look all like they were giving us the right type of information. The model predicted some exceedances of the guidelines across the region on the 8th of November after a rain event. And we've got some validation modelling come through, monitoring samples come through this morning. About a dozen beaches all showed information that would support a red alert mode at those beaches, or amber or red alert. So we've done extensive validation, and we're continuing to do extensive validation as we go forward to make sure that the models are giving us the best possible information.
Cool.
Now, just Tam, if I could ask you one more thing while we're on this map. If you could orient it back up to central Auckland. Sorry, to the back to the city, to the CBD. Just slide the map back down.
I think if you drag it. Click it and drag it.
Just click and drag the map back down so the CBD is central. Yeah, cool, thank you. So one thing that was really interesting from the model's performance was this area here, we know that there's a combined network and there's quite a lot of issues in here. You've been talking about this a lot. We had an instance on the 8th, as Martin was talking about, where a lot of rainfall was anticipated in this area in the Central Isthmus. We were expecting 25 mils and we were expecting to arrive at about 5 in the morning. And actually we got about 6 mils and it arrived something like 10:30 or something like that. And what that meant was it arrived, there was less sewage being driven into the harbour, and it arrived on an outgoing tide with an outgoing, with a very fresh westerly wind. So it was blowing the sewage plumes off the coast, and the model went green. And a lot of people were confused by that it was showing green at that time because it was raining at 10 when it went green. But it was because of those other factors that the plumes were being pushed out. What the model then showed is after the rain moved on, it was actually in the afternoon and evening that the risk was there. It was once the tide had turned in as the wind dropped, the plumes got blown back in, and that's when the risk was, which was when it was sunny, which was when no one was remembering that it was raining, and so the mindset was you could go for a swim. So what it is showing is it's actually we're going to have to change our behaviours. So there's a little bit of transition required here, which we expect, and we're just working through that. So Tam, if you could pop back to the presentation, please. Cool. And if you could go to the next few slides. We could go past that one and put that there just in case there was a connectivity issue. Could you just slide back one, please? So you can see here as well on those for each beach. You've got information about the beach, you've got a series of photos about the beach, you've got whether it's patrolled, you've got the general hazards. So we're trying to...
That side as well.
Oh, this side as well.
Yeah.
So information about the beach, the patrol hours, the general hazards, and so on. So it's trying to provide it's providing an integrated platform. So we could go to the next slide, please. The signs that have been erected at the approaches to the beaches covered by the Safeswim program have all been installed. The Great Barrier Local Board asked us to hold off while they had a bit of a discussion with us about integrating it with some of their other signs. We're talking actively with the rangers about working with them about integrating it with their signage programs. Okay, could you go to the next one, please? These signs are now out at the surf clubs and being put up by the surfers. The surf lifesavers. So you'll start seeing those on the beach. They've got little information cards that they're handing out as well. Next sign, please. And we have a digital sign installed at Mission Bay, which some members were present at the unveiling of it. So this digital sign, it's live. This entire screen here is live, and it's got a tailored format of the website. It's showing the beaches around the beach that you're at. So, for instance, if you're at Mission Bay and you might find at Okahu Bay, let's say at Mission Bay it's green, or it's red, and at Okahu Bay it's green, you might choose to just go around and swim over there. It's providing information on all the alerts, and there's information here rolling through on tide, etc. And that's working well. There's a series of, there have been 6 beaches that our investigations have found that the water quality is not so great at. In fact, poor enough to justify erecting long-term warnings. And we've offered to go and speak with each of those local boards. We've sent them memos to explain it, and we've offered to take them through it. We're meeting with the Waitakere board tomorrow to discuss the issues there at the beach and talk about the programs that are in place to get to the bottom of them and deal with those issues.
Okay.
And just a reminder that we are working actively as a partnership on this one, which is really helping because we're getting incredibly good data from Watercare coming through, and Surf Life Saving, we're working with them about how the public is engaging with us, and we're learning a lot about what does and doesn't work in terms of signage. So there will be evolution in the program in terms of the way that we communicate it, the kind of signs we put up. Thank you.
Cool bananas. Craig, you want any closing remarks and then
Yeah,
I'll open up for questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So having got the tool launched, obviously for me we're thinking about next steps already. So at the moment we've got 84 beaches covered, of which I think 69 are currently subject to the program and the balance are permanent red at the moment. That doesn't actually match all the beaches that Auckland is used for swimming. It's probably more like 200 or 300 locations. Now that we're going to a modelling approach, we want to get those 300 locations up on the website as quickly as we can. An example would be the steps down at the Viaduct Harbour where people swim off those steps. We want to turn that into a beach site. Not only that, we will only have clean harbours if we have clean streams. So the idea is to treat the streams as a number of virtual beaches and actually put warning signs in the streams as well. Not because we expect people to be swimming in the streams, it's going to highlight the water quality issues we have in our streams, because without clean streams we're never ever going to end up with clean harbours. And so we may well end up with another 100 or so stream sites, which will be called virtual swimming sites. That would be the plan anyway. It's ambitious, but we have to have a stretch target.
Yep.
So by this time next year, instead of seeing 84 icons on there, I'm hoping we might see up to 400 icons on the website. It's got the team a bit twitchy at the moment because it's an ambitious goal, but we have to, if we're going to win the hearts and minds of Aucklanders to spend the money that's required to fix the problem, we have to identify the problem in very black and white terms. And so we've been very open and transparent with the communities, and that's our plans.
Okay, let's wait for the debate to happen. Okay, Councillor Simpson and then Councillor Cooper.
Look, thank you very much for your work on this. It's absolutely outstanding. And I just want to tell you that the sign at Mission Bay has been a huge success. It's been the only thing I don't like is I've had so many calls asking me, you know, why on a nice sunny day that they can't swim. But my question to you is, which is actually very good for you, my question for you is around the feedback you've had in the 9 days since the launch. And what I'm interested to know is, because we're trialling the sign at Mission Bay, I'm interested to know if the sign has driven more people to the website, or people coming from the going to the website looking at beaches that have no signage. I mean, is that part of the trial? It's part of the trial information that you're gathering. So obviously at Mission Bay, you see, when you look at the sign at Mission Bay, just for the benefit of others, you see four beaches. You see right through to St Heliers, Koe, Mission Bay and Okahu, just in one swoop. So you know that those beaches are being potentially looked at by people who've maybe seen the sign, as opposed to other beaches. Do you have you got that data? I mean, as opposed to knowing that this many hits, what are they looking at?
Yeah, we can. At the moment, I only pulled out the high-level ones, but we can drill into low-level detail. Which beaches are they going to? So we can pull that up as part of the analytics down the track. We'll also be doing. This is with REMU. It's probably once there are more people on the beaches, we'll be doing observation and intercept surveys at the beaches. So we'll be asking people at Mission Bay, for instance, around their behaviour. Did this drive you to check the site, etc. So there are those. There's the website analytics, but then there's also the actual direct interaction.
So just on that supplementary, if I may, so could you just confirm the length of the trial for that sign and the things that you're doing over and above just having it there?
So at the moment, I don't think there's an end date in place for for instance, if it didn't work, if the community didn't like it, then it would be something that we'd talk about pulling it out if it didn't work, right? But there isn't a drop dead time in there at the moment. The trial is running for this summer period. We're calling it that trial, and the observation surveys, the intercept surveys, which is where you actually stop and ask questions, but then also written surveys, will be running January, February, March, and then the analysis should be available April, May, and then we'd be making decisions then about what we need to do and bringing recommendations back.
Okay, so we're not seeing another electronic sign at a beach for at least 6 or 8 months?
With one exception. Panuku would love to see a sign at St Mary's Bay, and they're prepared to fund it.
For the same money?
So so that is coming out of a Panuku budget, so that sign is going ahead at the moment.
Okay.
The reason also is that Council has a major capital investment program going on at St Mary's Bay, and so that sign will help raise the public awareness, and obviously with planning around with the acceleration of the Skypath program as well. There's just such massive patronage around that waterfront that we think it's a great way to elicit even more public awareness of the program as a whole.
And so you're not thinking about putting one at the viaduct over summer because it's not a beach, right? Is that the reason?
Look, at this stage, the thinking around the viaduct and the steps at the viaduct is quite new. I think realistically, we just have to. The signs are not cheap, and so we just need to maybe just evaluate how the signs are performing, what the public reaction is before we commit to a far wider rollout. And by then, of course, the LTP process will have gone through, so we'll know with a little bit more certainty what our funding base is going forward.
And just finally, if I may, some people have asked me, because it's real time and there's so much there, you know, is it possible for that one sign to cover things like smoking to be added to that sign, just so...
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Cooper.
Councillor. Yeah, sorry, that was something I noticed too, but it was a very tiny sticker down the bottom.
Instead of flashing up
Yeah,
every
where a
now and
toddler
again.
could see it, but maybe not an adult. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to roll out those signs after the policy and implementation plan's
stops
been
under 5-year-olds
adopted.
smoking.
It does, very good. I had a couple of questions. One is, when you look at, just looking at the website, it's absolutely outstanding. It's so information rich. You could spend all day kind of researching, all the beaches. One question, in terms of those sorts of, I suppose the northern Manukau where you've got all, over where Councillor Clow lives, your French bays, your wood bays, all of those, it is highly polluted. Is that a lot to do with the sort of septic tank kind of issues around there, do you think? Or the not good flushing?
I can comment on that.
Pardon the pun.
When we talked to the committee a month or two ago,
Sorry,
I talked about the fact that when these beaches attract a long-term permanent warning, we switch over into a different type of monitoring and investigation. So we're currently, through Craig's department, we're doing some work where we're looking at the inflows to those beaches and trying to identify the sources of the contamination.
Yeah.
Once we know where they're coming from, that's when we can start having discussions about how best to manage them.
There's been a lot of work done in the lagoons, which we're still struggling
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
but I
out
think
west,
it's
yeah.
quite a wake-up call there. The other question I had is around partnering with Surf Lifesavers, and we know they get relatively very little money from our ARAFA money fund, unfortunately, and now I see they're doing another role, which they have a huge role in the region. Now they're doing something else for us, and so is there any funding for the kind of work they're doing with putting up signs, sharing all their information, or no, probably
There's not additional funding in this program. It was something that they were voluntarily happy, to offer. I think for them, the fact that there's an integrated website now that allows their Marine Rescue Centre to put up alerts at all those beaches so that people could look at it before they go to the beaches was quite attractive to them.
Yeah, now good to see the links to the partners as well, but thank you, it's really great work.
Councillor Darby.
Thank you. This is really great work, and I commend the team for working on this. It's applying an intelligence, I think, your own, of course, but also the intelligence of technology to solving solutions, and I think that is just the absolute way of the future. And then, of course, we'll get to artificial intelligence, and then we won't need your intelligence. But, Chair, there's a question mark on Muriwai at the moment. What is that question mark?
There are 3 question marks on there's Muriwai, Kariatahi and Pakari. So they, at the start of the program, weren't in the formal Safeswim program, but in negotiations with Surf Lifesaving, they're obviously beaches that are patrolled and are really important. So we're bringing them into the program. At the moment, we haven't. There was monitoring that's been done at some of those beaches, but not enough for us to develop models that are sufficiently predictably robust. So we have them up there on the platform so that Surf Lifesaving can use it to put up alerts around the conditions at those beaches. But it's a work in progress around the water quality side. Martin, if you...
Yeah, so those 3 beaches are high on our priority list to do some targeted sampling and get a better understanding of what's going on in terms of water quality.
Did you say Karikari and Karikari's...
Kariatahi.
Kariatahi, down the way there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find that in a minute.
Southwest.
Sorry, just in terms of the narrative, and it's really good you have a little bit of information about each beach. You're slowly building that, 'cause some beaches don't have that. That's just work in progress as well?
That's right. We worked with Surf Lifesaving on that. They've got a risk and recreation assessor, an independent accredited assessor, and we worked with them. And so it is a work in progress, but we've put up as much as we could as quickly as we could.
Okay, and last question is, just in terms of what you in that beach details, it's like it explains what the facilities are, but is there opportunity to actually say what you can't do at beaches as well, e.g. the smoking? But I understand that a number of these beaches, and I think still at Cheltenham, for example, we have got a rahui on shellfish collection. I'm sure, I think at Okahu as well. And there's probably others. So not for health reasons, but for sustainability reasons or cultural reasons. Is there is there opportunity to explore that in the summary, in that narrative on beach details?
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely. And we have had discussions with mana whenua through the Healthy Waters mana whenua Kaitiaki Forum and the Watercare Kaitiaki Forum who are coming together around the potential for using Safeswim as a platform for Rahui. In discussions with them, we decided that we would take a slower path on that. We just step through it. There's a lot of agencies, there's a lot of people that need to be involved, so we didn't want to rush, and they were quite comfortable with that.
Thank you very much. Great work.
Okay. Councillor Walker.
Sure. Just a couple of questions on next steps. We're going to be having the signs up for the beaches, which is great. Are we going to be advancing to signs at the discharge points where we know in wet weather flows, sometimes even arguably dry weather flows, we've got sewage discharges into streams and so on? So are we going to be locating signs in those points?
One of the things that became really evident when we went around all of these beaches, we went and photographed them and reviewed them all, was that there is an issue that the council will need to come to grips with at some stage around signage. There are some inconsistent signage. There's a little bit of clutter. It's anecdotally, people are telling us it's kind of turning them off, creating a bit of fatigue. You lose the message. We also found, lots of signs from the historic councils still in place. So there's a piece of work that needs to be done, and I think the question that you raised needs to be tackled as part of that analysis. But we do, I think, need a comprehensive and integrated solution. We do need to work with parks, and we need to work with the environment, emergency management, as well as Healthy Waters and others.
For you, Mr. Chair, my question in part goes to health and safety, where we know that there are known hazards at those locations, and that people, the general public, kiddies, others that might be swimming in a stream or wading in a stream are exposed to a hazard that we know exists, and there's no sign up.
Okay.
So I think as part of the expansion of the program, where we have the issue, as we currently have, of permanent red signs, there will need to be more signs put at those specific locations. We're working through with Watercare at the moment because obviously a number of those signs relate to not wastewater overflows from the pump stations, but targeted wastewater overflows at specific points where the network currently is designed to overflow.
And part of my reasoning for asking this, Mr. Chair, is if the public are familiar with how widespread the issue is, it drives the investment, because they will say, we want this to be dealt with. The other question I've got just goes to next steps around citizen science. While I appreciate we've got a model here, increasingly now you can have E. coli tests that are next to nothing in terms of cost, and citizen science initiatives where we could have people, public of Auckland, at beaches, at streams, feeding into a database directly, and that exists now across a whole range of citizen science initiatives. Are you proposing to add that very good information to what is here a modelling-based approach?
Certainly it's something we have considered. There are a number of things around citizen science and other aspects that we could bring to the programme, but we were working with a clearly defined scope to make sure we hit the launch date of 1st of November. And then the next steps, certainly we're open to consideration of talking to citizen science groups. Hopefully we can get beach care groups, which is an initiative that runs across other countries, where you get a group of local people that take ownership of the beach, not just for water quality testing, but for a whole range of different purposes. So definitely, yes, it's on our list of things to look at.
Thank you. Councillor Quicks, and then if there's no comment, I'll put the recommendation.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think this is a really good initiative, Mr. Chair. I've, like everybody else, I think, around the room, looked at the website and been very impressed by it. The only comment I would make is that on the Butlins Beach Peninsula, you've got little bucks and big bucks mixed up. Big bucks is in the north, and little bucks is in the south. And while it's a small thing, if one of them ever becomes polluted and the other one is safe, it could create some confusion. So just draw your attention.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no further comments. It's been moved and seconded. I will move. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Look, I've just been made aware that why, but somebody will explain why. We have to go back and recommit item 10 because the recommendations had to be put individually. My question was why as well, but because we had that. Thank you so much. Sorry, swim team. Swim team. Thanks so much, Craig. Yeah, look, I mean, but this is why we ended up having, and I kept that summary on the PowerPoint up there in regards to what each of the recommendations were. But if it has to, well, let's do it. So, Barry, can you explain just a little bit further why? Because, like I said, it was self-explanatory when we ended up putting up there with that PowerPoint that was presented, but can you?
My apologies, Mr. Chair. We've received some legal advice afterwards and apologies for this occurring, that each one of those, A through to G, I think it is, needed to ensure that we did things properly, should actually be approved sequentially rather than in a block. That's the legal advice we've received to just manage some risk around it. A stepped process. Yeah, look, and my apologies for that not being clear.
It is what it is. It's just that it was. Never mind. I just a wee bit disappointing, but look, I'm just going to recommit item 10. All those. I'll move it. Second, Councillor Cashmore, Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I will then now move recommendation A. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. I will now put recommendation B. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. C.
Aye.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. D. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. E.
Aye.
All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Aye.
F. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. G. Don't know why this one has to put. We'll do it. G. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Get a new lawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a lawyer who's now happy.
They just build you another.
Never mind. Hey, look.
Did you do it now?
I just want to
Lawyers
talk
happy.
I just want
the lawyers happy.
to let you know. Look, there's only 2 items. One of them is obviously, from my perspective anyway, something that will just go through. Councillor Walker's one, and the trip to Taiwan, and then the most important one is the confidential one, and that's the 3 that we have. We've also got the confidential briefing. So I'm in your hands in regards to it. Lunch is just around the corner. But I want to push everything through. Then we have lunch. There's nothing else afterwards. You then, as the members of this committee, have your day ahead of you. So I'm going to do that. But I think we need, for those that want to have and I'll allow Councillor Walker just to get all his presentation full, just to sort of have a little go shoot to the wharepaku break, please. So I'm going to just move 5 minutes. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Wharepaku stop. that particular item. Second, Councillor Clough. And